Peace, love, Goldn.Light. Today is Thursday. So on Thursday, I share with you my response to the journal prompt that will be from the Write It Down series. And this week has been all about validation. So here's my response and reflection about my validation journey. Let's get into it. You know what you gotta do now. Grab a pen, we about to write it down. You know what you gotta do now. Grab a pen, write it down. So the question asks, do you need validation? So I asked myself, do I need validation? And the answer is no. Now, was that always the answer? No. So there has been times, pretty much a big part of my life, where I did seek validation outside of myself, right? And that was a hard pill to swallow. But through my journey, through my self-work, through really taking a look at myself, I had to be honest, right? I uncovered that I was a people pleaser. I uncovered that I looked for validation outside of myself. I uncovered that I wanted to be accepted and I wanted to be liked, right? Now, this wasn't something that just started when I was 18, when I was 20. Going back into childhood, this is something that I realized that had been there since I was young, right? So when you're a young girl, well, me specifically being young and realizing that I want to be accepted, I want to be included, right? I feel different, I feel out of place, but still you kind of long for some type of inclusion, right? So you kind of go along to get along or to fit in, right? And I feel like I spent a lot of my life trying to fit in, and then always realizing that I'm not myself. I don't fit in, right? But I'm happy that I've been able throughout my journey to find spaces where I do fit in, where I was able to be myself. But when I was not actually attacking the root of this issue, it carried over into my early 20s. I really had put in so much more work to validate myself, to be just validated by the Most High, to be secure in my voice, to be secure in how I want to move. There was still things that I did, right? But if I'm being honest with myself and being honest with you, there was a period of time where I still was seeking validation. So when I first was sharing this prompt, there were some things that I shared on my Instagram, and I spoke about approval seeking behavior, right? And some of that included giving fake compliments just to gain approval, agreeing with someone when you don't really agree, changing your stance on something because someone disapproves. Now the last one is something that I really struggled with, right? And that came from low self-esteem, not being confident in my voice, not being secure in my own efforts and visions and things that I had. Yes, when I was alone, these things were great, but amongst people, I couldn't face feeling like I was alone. So if I said something and then depending on how somebody reacted to me, I'm not gonna lie, I changed how I felt. I'd be like, I just agree with everybody else is doing. And over time, I started to realize how much I did cage myself. So when y'all hear me talk about how hard I'm going to show up for myself and things like that, this is not just an overnight type of thing or a way for me to present myself because I want to be seen. I personally know what I've done my entire life, right? Especially when I've taken the time to be intentional, to pay attention to what I've been doing. And not trying to point fingers, right? I'm looking at myself. What can I control within myself and what can I work on? And that's what I've been working on. So today, do I need validation? No. The Most High validates me. I validate myself. But in the past, I did seek validation outside of myself. I did seek approval and acceptance from other people. And I'm at a point today where I can admit that. And that's okay, right? No, it wasn't always great and I was always doing the stuff and standing up and talking for myself and all that kind of thing. It took a lot of work. It took being honest with myself, and that was one of the hardest things because it's like I didn't want to admit that I wanted to be liked. I didn't want to admit that I wanted to be accepted. I didn't want to admit that I needed other people's validation to feel like I was secure in what I was doing. I didn't want to face that, but when I did, it hurt. I was very critical and upset with myself because it's something that I wanted to have automatically. Didn't want to be something that I needed to work on. But when I let that critical part go, and was able to just be open and honest with myself and work through some of the things that caused me to kind of be in this type of mindset, it opened me up to embrace more of myself, right? It's not easy. It wasn't always easy. And it took sometimes situations with other people for it to be brought out more, right? So I want to share something that this is a part of a reflection in the past as well as a reflection now, because May of this year, I spent some time in a meditation, and it was one of the times where I was physically writing out some of the things that I was realizing. This was around the time even where I was like, yo, you're a people pleaser. You've been people pleasing for a long time. Why? Right? So part of what I wrote, this was back in May. I said, laying down meditation, I asked myself, why have I longed for acceptance and or validation? As a child wanting to be accepted or liked, why did I need an outside source to validate me? So in my writing, journaling and through my meditation, this is something that I asked myself. Why did I need an outside source to validate me? Why did that make me feel secure? Because somebody else was saying, this is good, this is an approval, this is acceptance, right? When your standard is made up by outside sources, you will always seek outside approval. I wanted to be liked, but did I even like myself? When I first wrote that, I was like, yeah, I did. I think I did. But I liked myself, but I kept myself hidden. I measured myself against the outside, using outside comments to build a structure for myself. So the foundation that I was building for myself was made up of other people, other people's compliments, other people's comments, other people's input, right? Because I didn't really give time to nurture myself to say, what is it that Toya likes? What's Toya's perspective of herself? So instead of spending time to nurture and really look at myself, it was like, okay, this person says something about me, let me hold on to that. Okay, here's another person that says something about me, so let me hold on to that. So whether it was good or bad, I was holding on to it. But what did Toya really feel, right? So I said, I didn't spend enough time nurturing myself. Why? This was more questions that I asked myself. So validation and desire for acceptance is a cord that one must break in order to be free. If not, you will be bound to any and everything where you seek the validation. That's why I always felt like I was fucking tossed to and fro in so many different directions, because I was just moving from one validation to the next. And it was exhausting. And in the beginning, I didn't realize how exhausting it was because I was so used to seeking the validation, right? Until I realized, like, oh my gosh, like, this isn't working for me. Enough is enough, right? So I had to work through validating myself. But before I could actually do that, I had to go to the root of why I was seeking validation. What was I insecure about? What were my fears? And this is some of the self-work that I had to do. And writing, journaling, as I always mention, has been something that really helped me, really allowed me to face things that I was dealing with, to go through different situations, to sit in my meditation, to be still, to realize this is what's real about the situation. So what is the work that I did? I became aware of myself, right? How did I do that? Meditation, journaling, reflection, any type of reflection that I can do to realize what it is that makes Toya Toya. What can I embrace? What is real about me? What is an illusion? What false pretense did I create for myself, right? And tearing that apart and really becoming aware of who I am. To be aware of myself was what really gave me a key to move about in life, right? Another thing was defining my self-worth, right? I defined my worth by other people. And I realized that some people can see more of a worth in me that I saw in myself. So here's one person that has me at a high level, somebody else that may have me at a lower level, or another person that has me really, really high, right? So I'm being moved by how these people see me, and I'm moving according to them. But what was my self-worth? How did I view myself? How did I value myself? It's easy for me to be like, oh, this is great when I'm by myself. But it was really about being out amongst other people that feeling that I had for myself wasn't really solid. It wasn't really secure. because I crumbled. I fumbled. You know what I'm saying? I folded amongst other people, right? And it came from a self-esteem. And I had to really sit with myself and realize, like, it wasn't people constantly telling me I wasn't this, I wasn't that. It was really my own internal things that I was facing that I never addressed when I was young, right? And I remember I got this tattoo. I think I might have been 17, and I put me, myself, and I. And I knew that no matter what I was doing, it had to come from myself. It wasn't an outside source. It wasn't anything that someone else can do for me. I had to do it for me. And I knew this, but even back then, there were still other ways that I fell short of fulfilling that. What else did I do? I stopped comparing myself to other people. That was something that really was a killer for me. You know, being younger and just being like, oh, such and such has this, or such and such is getting this compliment, or such and such. All this comparison really crushed and took me away from Toya getting to know Toya. I had to revisit what my beliefs were about myself. So not allowing an outside standard, like I said before, to be my standard if it's not something that I agree with, right? And there's some things that I don't always notice until it's brought to my attention by other people. But being aware of myself to say, that ain't it, regardless if that's somebody else's perspective. Journaling to release and sort my thoughts is something else that allowed me to do the work, as well as I mentioned before, going to the root of why I was seeking validation and who I was seeking validation from, right? So these were things that I've done that allowed me to be where I am today. So now I feel more secure in myself because of the work that I've put in over the years. You may be watching this and be like, damn sis, I feel you, but I don't feel you. Maybe this was not your struggle, and that's cool. I used to feel like if I said that I didn't have the confidence and then somebody was like, well, shoot, I never had that problem, I would feel away. I'd be like, damn, I shouldn't have that problem either. But I can say it because I know the things that I've conquered. I know the obstacles that I've pushed through. And even though this may not be your issue, there's something else that you may be struggling with that's not an issue for me. So again, not comparing myself to what other people's strengths are, or what somebody else's weaknesses, right? So being secure in who I am, being secure in how I feel, being secure in how I view myself, and then also trusting myself to make decisions, trusting myself to validate myself, really. Being confident to use my voice, right? So a lot of things that's going on within, and not wanting to speak up or speak out because of what that may do to other people or how other people may be uncomfortable. So I had to regain my voice, right? So in certain circles, that's not an issue. If I'm really comfortable with you two, I'm gonna talk your head off. But in other spaces, I questioned my thoughts, I questioned my ideas, I questioned my words. I was so consumed on what everybody else was thinking about me that it didn't allow me to be myself. So I had to cut that shit out, right? And yes, sometimes little things may creep back in, but I'm better at checking myself and saying, okay, nah, that's not what it is. And I also have support from solid people that let me know when, sis, you tripping. You know what it is, right? Because sometimes you need that extra reminder when you allow yourself to go into doubt, hesitation, and worry and shit like that, right? As I mentioned before, accepting my own thoughts and experiences as my own, not in a way to be compared to say that I'm less than someone else who didn't have this experience, who didn't have this thought, right? And then also acknowledging my strengths, my success, my efforts, and things like that in ways that I can truly validate myself. So, do I need validation? No. In the past, did I need validation? Yes. It's almost like I wanted it so bad that I did certain things or said certain things because I wanted to be accepted. And now it's just like, I've spent the time with myself to accept myself, to love myself, to forgive myself, that only between me and the Most High, that's all the validation that I need, right? I don't need social media to validate me. I don't need other people to validate me. I don't need a job to validate me. I don't need anything outside of myself and the Most High to validate me. And that's something that I'm more secure to stand on, right? But it took a lot of work. I'm not gonna lie. It took a lot of work. It took being really frustrated and angry with myself, right? So I had to also go through self-forgiveness, feeling like I wasted time. I wasted time. Why did I waste so many years seeking validation outside of myself? Why did I waste so much time not being secure in myself? You know how much further I would be? But everything happens in its divine time, and I'm happy and proud of where I am right now. And there's nothing more that I could do but continue to go forward, continue to elevate, continue to evolve, right? So this prompt was a more of a reflection to me, and some more things that I've written down, more so of where I am now and how it feels good to validate myself. So if you are somebody that's struggling with validation, you're seeking validation outside of yourself, hit me up. I want to share with you some more journal prompts, and in 2021 I'm going to have one-on-one sessions that I will be sharing more. So if you have not subscribed or signed up for my email list, please do that, because it will allow you to be in the know and get the first information about new updates and things like that, because there's a lot of services that I want to provide, if it be the Most High's will, so that we can really strengthen each other and sharpen each other as we're moving on our own journey. So that's all I have for this prompt. On Sunday, I'm going to have a new prompt, and we have a couple more Sundays for this month before we continue the Write It Down series for 2021. So as always, leave your thoughts in a comment, like this video, share it with a friend. Do what you gotta do, however you feel moved. And until then, my sugar babies, peace and love.